To Nigeria now, where the number of people facing acute hunger has reached nearly 31 million. That's a record, according to the United Nations. Northeastern Nigeria has been particularly hard hit, and that's because of escalating violence by various militant groups. Added to that, global aid cuts are making the dire hunger situation even worse. DW's West Africa Correspondent Azeezat Olaoluwa reports now from Nigeria's northeast.
We are travelling to Ngala, an area in northeast Nigeria where Islamist jihadist group Boko Haram is still very active.
Fertile fields are being left untended as residents were forced to flee following years of attacks by criminal gangs. Many of them now live in displacement camps and depended on food aid, which has now stopped due to US funding cuts. Air travel is the only safest way of reaching the camps, as armed criminals have made the roads too dangerous.
This camp is the largest in Ngala. The refugees here are struggling to provide for their families. Travel beyond the camp borders is not safe, as armed militants surround the perimeter. Kore Garba just rushed her youngest son, 3-year-old Jime, to the stabilization center. There, he was diagnosed with severe malnutrition and other health complications.
My son had a fever and refused to eat, so I took him to a chemist to buy drugs. But I had to rush him to the clinic when his condition got worse. My husband and I don't work. We live on food aid, but what we get is not enough to feed our family.
The United Nations says this year, at least 1 million children face severe acute malnutrition here in Borno and 2 neighboring states. Stabilization centers like this have been set up to treat severe malnutrition, but it is the only one serving the entire area. A second center was closed due to lack of funding, putting pressure on the remaining workers. Besides the funding cuts, the UN says the lean season, a period when food is most scarce, has also contributed to the hunger crisis. Residents in this camp gather daily at this storage center, hoping to get more food, but there is just not enough to go around. This is all Kaltuma receives to feed her 8 children. She says it is just enough for 2 days, and she's not sure of how much, if any, food she will get in September.
I depend totally on the food intervention we get here in camp, because I don't have any means of income. Once I exhaust my food and the food support we get stops, I will be forced to take my children to the host communities and start begging for alms.
The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, says they received just 1/3 of their expected funding for this year and don't expect more to come. Trond Jensen, the head of office in Nigeria, wants the situation in the camps could get worse.
What we are extremely concerned about is the fate then of children under 5 who are severely, acutely malnourished. That's a life-threatening condition. And if they don't get medical assistance, we're at risk of 420,000 children dying in Nigeria.
The vulnerable here are already feeling the impact of the recent funding cuts. Unless more money comes in, their situation could get a lot worse.
Bärbel Kofler is the Parliamentary State Secretary at the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. I asked for her take on the global aid cuts, which are affecting people in Nigeria and around the world.
Well, first of all, good morning. Thank you for having me. I couldn't agree more to what I've seen also in your reportation. The severe cuts are really leading at the end of the day to a food crisis in many circumstances, in many countries. It's crystal clear that there are millions of people who are not having enough food anymore, where there are shortages in their food support, or they don't have any support at all anymore. And a food crisis at the end of the day always leads also to a total security crisis. So at the end of the day, it's counterproductive also if we want to establish a more peaceful and a more secure world. And it's of course a humanitarian crisis and a humanitarian catastrophe.
We're seeing the effects of major cuts, American cuts. Germany's current draft budget also suggests significant reductions in funding for development cooperation. So is Germany following a similar path to the US in cutting international aid?
Unfortunately, there will be cuts in the German budget, but I clearly can say we are not following the US example. We are staying a reliable partner internationally, and we are staying a reliable partner to our countries around the globe, and especially to those in need, and we will continue our support. What we unfortunately are not able to do is to cover the cuts which are used to the end of USAID.
Mm-hmm. Is that taking a responsible long-term view, though? Because aid organisations say today's budget cuts will create tomorrow's crises and jeopardise decades of development progress. I mean, do you see their point?
I see that point, and I honestly would like to see the world differently, that we all engage more. I agree with those who are saying we need to do more in supporting people, especially supporting in hunger crisis, supporting the fight against malnutrition, because at the end of the day, that's a mid and a long-term worsening of the whole situation in a lot of areas. And at the end of the day, it's not in the interest of security and of peace.
So do you see then, from what you're saying, do you see a sort of a shift in attitudes? You know, would you say that international solidarity maybe no longer plays as important a role as it used to?
I think we have to take up this discussion again. I think a lot of people feeling that transformation around the globe is having an impact on their life. And they need answers to also international questions. And we have to take up that debate on international solidarity again and explain also people in Europe, in the States, all over, how important it is to support other countries in a solidarity manner that has also an impact on the life of the people in our countries, in our societies.
Mm-hmm. For now, though, you know, these shrinking budget cuts are having effects, as we just saw in our report. So what can be done to prevent Nigeria and other regions from falling even deeper into what's already a devastating hunger crisis?
What we are doing in the Sahel, not only Nigeria, but also other countries in the Sahel, is really, we are continuing the support we are still giving. It's not enough because of the cuts we see worldwide, but we are having long-term, mid-term programs who are supporting villages to produce food. We are re-establishing also traditional agricultural methods to make it possible to use the soil, which was not possible to use anymore due to climate change. And we have very, very good examples on that, for example, in Niger, we have 80% of the villages who get that support in reinforcing their agricultural power. They are not falling into hunger crisis again when the next climate or other external shock is coming. So they really can sustain themselves, and that's part of the programs we are doing in sustainably supporting our partners and our partner countries and the people in the affected areas.
Bärbel Kofler, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for your time. Parliamentary State Secretary at the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.